Hey, what's up guys? My name is Mirai, and in this video I'm going to be showing you a not so recently implemented yet heavily underutilized feature of ISBoxer, and that is the World of Warcraft macro library. The library itself can be found in the game helper section of ISBoxer, and if you use the quick setup wizard to get yourself started, and I highly recommend you do so, you will see a list of macros in this section. These are just macros that the wizard generates so that ISBoxer can work some of its magic behind the scenes. But you can create as many macros here as you'd like. Now, I'm sure you noticed that there are these strange variables associated with some of these macros. These variables help ISBoxer interpret certain conditions and then translate them so that they work within a World of Warcraft macro. I realize that's a very general statement because different variables do different things, but you can find a full list of variables on the ISBoxer wiki. Now, just as a quick example, check out the assist FTL macro. This macro obviously uses the FTL variable, but what does that mean? How does ISBoxer translate that? Well, whenever you're using variables in your macros, you can click on the preview tab to see what the macro is going to look like in its final form. This is what an infamous FTL assist macro looks like for a single character in a 5-man team. It looks very complicated, and that's probably the reason why most multiboxers who don't use ISBoxer shy away from an FTL setup, because it'd be tedious to have to constantly write this out and use this in all of your rotations. Thankfully, ISBoxer takes care of that for you. Now, moving back to the General tab, you'll see a few extra options that will need to be configured before your macro is ready to be used. Most importantly, you will always need to set a key combination. This key combination will be transparently assigned in-game through the ISBoxer add-on, so you cannot use keys that will conflict with any other in-game key bindings. If you do, you'll receive a warning in your chat window when you first load your character into the game world or after reloading your UI. Now, if your macro utilizes modifier keys like this one does, then it'll require an extra step to fully set up, and I'll show how to do that in a minute, but first, you'll need to check the appropriate modifiers in the Allow Extra Modifiers section below. Underneath that is the Can Use FTL Modifiers option, and any macro that does require this checkbox to be enabled will have already been generated by the Quick Setup wizard. Any normal user should never, ever need to enable any extra FTL options that the wizard doesn't already configure for you. I will mention, however, that you can't use any modifier keys in the key combination if the FTL modifier option is enabled below, or else the modifiers will conflict. Another optional setting is the click button name. This field does not have to be filled in, but if you're familiar with the way that click macros work within World of Warcraft, ISBoxer is able to enable that behavior. As an example, you can see that this macro's click button name is FTL Assist, and if we take a look at the Assist and Hold macro, you can see that it calls FTL Assist via the click function. You are able to link macros together in this fashion, just as you would through the World of Warcraft macro system. Now, one final thing to mention is if you happen to create more macro sets than what the wizard initially generates, you'll need to make sure that they're properly assigned to your characters and/or character sets in order for them to function properly. You can do this by clicking on the title of the macro set and selecting or deselecting the appropriate settings. Alright, so let's say you've created a macro of your own. How exactly do you use it? Well, first you need to make a mapped key, which is the standard method for doing anything in ISBoxer. The easiest way to accomplish this is by using the mapped key wizard. First, choose the key map, and then choose to create a named WoW macro. Once you're on this screen, set the hotkey, choose the macro from the appropriate dropdowns, set the necessary modifiers if applicable, choose the target, and then anything else that pertains to this macro. Click Finish, and you're done. Now, if your macro uses modifiers, you'll need to create a copy of your mapped key for each extra modifier it uses. My macro uses Alt, so I'll create a copy of my original mapped key and then rename it to something I can more easily identify. Then I'll expand the mapped key and add Alt to the hotkey, and then go into the action and check Left Alt under Add Optional Modifiers, which I enabled earlier in the macros options. If you had more modifiers in your macro, then you would repeat these same steps and make the necessary changes for each one. Also, if you do happen to choose a macro that does not have a key combination correctly assigned to it, ISBoxer will let you know that you're doing it wrong when you export. If your macro correctly follows the World of Warcraft guidelines, you haven't chosen a key combination that conflicts with anything else, your macro set is properly assigned, and you've successfully exported your settings from ISBoxer to Innerspace, then your macro should be working as intended. Now, there are a few final things to note. First, macros created within ISBoxer are stored in the ISBoxer add-on, which can be found in your World of Warcraft add-on folder. The add-on itself is created and/or refreshed whenever you export your settings from ISBoxer. And if you're already playing the game when creating or adjusting your macros through ISBoxer, a reload of your UI is required for any changes to take effect after you export. Because ISBoxer uses an add-on to interface with World of Warcraft, you'll also need to make sure that it's properly enabled by looking in your add-on list on the character selection screen. It's also good to note that like other third-party macro add-ons, ISBoxer has the capability to exceed the in-game limit of 255 characters, which means you can create macros that take advantage of the full 1024 character limit. Now, if you do not use the mapped key wizard and you decide to create a mapped key manually, you'll most likely encounter this World of Warcraft macro action listed here. This is a deprecated action that exists solely for backwards compatibility with older ISBoxer profiles, and when creating a mapped key manually, you'll want to choose to create a new named World of Warcraft macro action. And finally, ISBoxer macro variables are for convenience only. You won't find any variables to help assist in making decisions for you based on cooldowns or usable skills. All macros created within ISBoxer are converted into the exact same macro system that everyone else who plays the game is bound to. And that covers the ISBoxer World of Warcraft macro library. For any further questions, comments, or concerns, please visit the ISBoxer forum or the live chat.